Hi, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 2 of A Priest Crafts. My name is Rebecca, and you can find me online at osbornefiber.com and on Ravelry as Rebby J. So this is the second episode of me sort of taking you with me on my weaving journey, and I've started my second project. As you can tell, it's October, but today that I'm recording is actually Canadian Thanksgiving, and my sort of theme for this project is thankfulness. So I started with two things. I started with the Morse code scarf from Sign Mitchell's book, Inventive Weaving on a Little Loom, which is an awesome book. I have loved reading through this book. Definitely recommend it. From my inexpert judgment, it's just fantastic. So it's the first sort of real pattern in her book. And the idea is that you are encoding a message in Morse code using weft stripes, wide and skinny, or whatever you want for dots and dashes, so you can encode a little message. So I started with that, and then I started with some yarn because my stash is still not here. My stash is on a boat that is actually right out there in the water right now, in a container, in a box, in a chest. My yarn is all right there, but it's going to be another couple weeks till I can get it. So I have to use what I have on hand, and what I have on hand is my leftovers from making this sweater. My mom dyed me this beautiful yarn to make the North Weaving sweater hoodie from Kate Davies, and I have lots of leftovers. She natural dyed it using indigo and apple bark and black beans and cochineal and probably other things I'm forgetting. Logwood, I think, was the other one. She dyed all these beautiful colors, and I had a ton of leftovers because she gave me really generous yardage. So I thought I would use this pattern, use the Morse code pattern, but make it into pillow covers instead of a scarf, because I don't really need another scarf, but I really need throw pillows. So I actually made myself these 16-inch throw pillow forms I upcycled some old pillows that were lying around the house, and I'm making covers for them. So I kind of want to take you through my planning process, because that's what I've been finding really interesting in the weaving process, is how important planning is, and I've really enjoyed that part of it. So I'm going to show you my process and kind of my notebook for that. So here we go. Okay, so I started with a idea kind of page in my bullet journal. This is my very messy, functional bullet journal. I just started with an idea page. Wrote down my warp and weft, kind of where I thought I was going with it. The Morse code, started messing with that, and what I wanted to do for a color gamp. So the first thing I did was I made a color gamp. I think color gamps are just about the coolest thing in the world. They're the anti-FOMO. They're just, because you get to see all the possibilities. You just take all your colors, you put a block of each in the warp, and you put a block of each in the weft, and you get to see how they all work together, which is awesome, because even when you have the same colors, if you switch like which one is in the warp and which one is in the weft, like these two and these two and these two, they look different. They're not the same. They're not identical, the way the colors blend together. And I think that's really fascinating. So I made one of these because I wanted to decide from the 5 colors I had which ones to use together. And I ended up, and also based on how much yarn I had left, it limited me to some extent. So I ended up deciding to put the blue and the purple as the kind of background color warp, because I really wanted blue to to be carried through a blue tone, with the dots and dashes to be in the light color so they really pop. And then for the weft, I would use the pink and the green. So I kind of am trying to line it up so that one pillow is, so that both pillows are kind of have the green weft on one side and the pink weft on the other. And I don't know if that'll work out, but that's what I'm hoping to do. And because I've got the GAMP, I could kind of line it up and see, okay, do I like these colors together? Or do I like, more these colors together? I kind of looked at that and said, no, I don't like that. Do I like these colors together? I didn't really love that either. So I ended up deciding that, no, that is what I have. That is one of my choices. Yeah. It's probably my less favorite. I probably like this one more, but I really didn't like, I think, that one was okay. I don't know. This is what I decided. I had a few options based on the amount of yarn I had left, but I ended up deciding these are going to be the warps and these two are going to be the wefts with this as the, or I was wrong. These two will be the wefts and these two will be the warps with these as the pop. So once I had this woven, this was also a sample to check, like my take up and draw in, and basically what size it's going to be on the loom versus what size it will be after it's off the loom and finished. So I also took those notes on here. I was measuring it on the loom as I made it, and then I made notes of what it measured off the loom, off of tension, and after I washed it. And I was surprised. I ended up with only an 8% shrinkage in width and a 6% shrinkage in length. That was less than I was expecting. Maybe because it's a super wash, so it probably bounced back more right off the loom, but it didn't shrink that much in the wash, even though I washed it in very hot water. So, yeah, I'm guessing, that's probably what happened. But still, I was a little nervous about it, so I rounded up to say that I was going to use a 10% shrinkage measurement in width and an 8% in length, just to be safe. So once I had those numbers, I could work out how many ends I needed. I also discovered something really interesting. I discovered that my 10 dent reed is actually a 13 dent reed. It's, I'm getting 18 threads per inch in my reed, not like in the finished fabric, but in my reed. So that was really helpful. It's made in my loom is a Glamacra, and it's manufactured in Sweden, so that's probably why. So that was important to know. Important to do for a new loom. Like my daughter making poop emojis in my journal. So then I took it to a more serious planning phase. I worked out how many ends I would need for a couple different sizes, because I wasn't sure if I was going to make an 18-inch pillow or a 16-inch pillow. But I decided on the 16-inch because the blue, it was really important to me to have the blue in the warp, and that's the color I have the least of. So that was really a limiting factor for me. So up here, you can see what I'm putting in the Morse code message. Based on the number of ends that I needed to have, which was around 230, I wanted to put the name of the town that I just moved to in the pillow. And Rankin Inlet kind of didn't take up enough room, so what I ended up deciding on was the Inuktitut name for the town, which is Kangaklinik. Kangaklinik. I can't always say it right. And Rankin kind of afterwards. So this Kangaklinik was going to have blue for the background warp, and Rankin's going to have the purple for the background warp. And so I wrote that down. I translated into Morse code, and then I wrote down all of my warp ends. So the top row is the the letters, and the bottom row is the spacer. So I put like two threads in between each dot or dash, and then 4 threads in between each letter, and then 8 ends between the 2 words. And they're all crossed out because I have warped up already, and I very painstakingly like checked and double checked every single time to make sure that I was actually encoding my message correctly. And it took a long time. It took me about 2 hours to warp, and then I went and warped it backwards, but that was fixable. Anyway, so yeah, so I ended up with a 103-inch warp. I made it a little bigger to 238 ends to give myself just a little bit of space at the edges, and that way it's got a little bit of wiggle room, and I can always make like a corded edge if it ends up being too big, so I'm not too worried about that. So yeah, 103-inch warp. I really hope that's long enough, but yeah, we'll see. So that's my plan. I have already warped up and woven about 12 inches at this point. The big test, of course, is going to be whether my sampling pans out, because as a knitter, I've certainly experienced that swatches can be wrong, because a small piece of fabric, even a pretty large swatch, can't account for all the variables of having a whole sweater hanging off of it. As you know, this sweater, I swatched extensively for this, and I weighted my swatches. I was so good, and it still came out bigger than I thought. It just happens. And I know that can be true for weaving, so it'll be really interesting to see if my shrinkage rates and everything match up. Worst comes to worst, I'll have an interesting color block shawl, but I would really like at least one pillow cover out of it. So we'll see how it goes. Let's weave. Okay, so it's a few days later and I am out at the end of the road at the park near Rankin. It's a Kalujaryu Nunanga Park. And I'm out at the end of the road where there's a beautiful view. I'm going to show you here. Yeah, it's kind of windy, but it's just gorgeous. And yeah, I finished my cloth. La. And I wanted to take it out here to sort of introduce it to the land that it is encoding. So you can see this is Clinic and this says Rankin. It's probably backwards for you. There we go. Clinic Rankin. And this is sort of a statement to myself of just sort of making our new home and in this new place that we're really learning to love. It's just gorgeous here. It's people kept saying, "Oh, it's so flat in Rankin," but you know, it's not that flat. It's not like, you know, Manitoba is flat, but this is, you know, there's a lot of interest. There's, you know, views, and I just love it. So yeah, this is all done. Well, it's not, I haven't finished it, but I have sewn in the ends that needed to be sewn in, and I have fixed my mistakes, which are many. Yeah. I had some very soggy sheds because my tension was off because I had warped the loom backwards, and I had to fix it, which I did by taking out the apron rod and putting in a warping stick, taking out the apron rod. I had a helper to just walk it around the other way with the heddle, turning the heddle around as well, so it could just face the other way, and that was fine. But all of that, the warp didn't get tangled, but it just got shifted and bumped, and that's not what you want. So despite my best efforts at winding on carefully, it was had a lot of soggy sheds and a lot of loose threads. It helped some to just the down shed when the heddle is down was, for some reason, seemed worse. Maybe just because the slot threads are going to be worse, and so then you can see the slot threads when it's down. But it helped me somewhat to just put a shuttle in the down shed and push it towards the back of the loom, and that helped a lot. But then I tend to miss threads on the up shed because I would go under them and not notice. Yeah, I had a whole bunch of them. I had a really bad spot. Oh yeah, right here. Yeah, you can see. So I was very thankful that I had gotten to watch, again, Liz Gibson's Weaving 101 video, because she had some great troubleshooting tips on how to fix mistakes in your work. And Naomi said something really sweet. She said, when I saw that there was a place that I'd messed up, I was like, oh darn, I had some skip thread. She said, it's okay, Mama. It just makes it more beautiful. This is for my kid who is not keen on making mistakes, so there's a couple places that I didn't fix because I missed it. Well, and I'm just gonna leave it. And that'll be my little memory of what she said. Yeah, so hopefully you can see this okay in the light. These two panels will fold in half to cover one pillow, and then I'll cut it here, and this will cover the other pillow. I still need to cut out the header. I wanted to show you this because it was a real learning experience for me in terms of color, because I learned, because color just works totally differently in weaving than it does to knitting, and I learned that when you have a stripy weft, like a stripy warp like this, with a really light and dark, and then you cross it with a weft that is in between those values of middling value, it just mutes the whole thing. Whereas this one that's closer in value to the warp, the weft is closer in value to the dark warp, it makes the light colors pop a lot more. Which in hindsight seems obvious, but you know, I couldn't imagine it until I saw it. So that was helpful. I still think it looks great. I'm still happy with it, but you know, I think color theory is fascinating, and I love learning by surprises. So I'm gonna need to cut out the header, and then I'll wash it and I'll sew it up and hopefully have a couple of pillows. So I'm just super thankful to have this opportunity to live here and to be able to make things in my downtime and to hopefully get to know this place a little more. I have a lot to learn, as usual, but we've been very welcomed and we're feeling very at home. So yeah, I guess that's all I had to say for today. I'm gonna hopefully, assuming nothing else happens, I will post a couple pictures of the finished pillows, but I'm gonna be done talking for now for today. So thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for giving me your time, and it means a lot to me to be able to share with you what I'm up to and how my weaving journey is going. I will as usual, I feel the need to say this is not an instructional video. This is just my learning journey, and I will post any links to the resources I used in the show notes. So thank you again. Have an awesome day, and I hope whatever you're making, that it's bringing you joy. Bye for now.
Like a bird on a tree, I'm just sitting here. I got time, it's clear to see. From up here, the world seems small. like a bird on a tree. I'm just sitting here.